what a thrill it is to have all of you here in Chicago right now with this incredibly moving piece of work, Brokeback Mountain, that we know from the Ang Lee directed motion picture, now being brought to stage at Chicago Shakespeare Theater through June 28th. Harrison Ball plays Ennis, which is the Heath Ledger character that you may remember from the movie. Jack Cameron Kay plays Jack. That is the Jake Gyllenhaal character from the movie. And Ashley Robinson is the playwright, the man who took this story and adapted it for stage. And we were just talking a minute ago before we started about the reaction that you're getting in the few days now that the show has been in preview. Harrison, why don't you start us off and tell us, I mean, the audiences have been raving. How has it been going on your side of the stage?
We're in a dreamscape, and I've in still total discovery mode. Obviously we're still in previews, so the work is very much alive, and the audiences here are wonderful, and the theater is so intimate, so it adds a whole different layer to our environment in the play. And then, this being my first crack at a play alongside Jack has just been really a just every day it's a discovery, and I feel like we're really cradled by the theater, the organization, by Ashley, by Jonathan, by the actors, by the band that's part of the storytelling. We've developed this kind of very familial dynamic, and it kind of goes by in a flash. It's an hour and 40, I believe, with no intermission, but it goes by so quickly for us because, we cover this 20-year period and so much happens, but, we're just taken by it. I'm totally taken by it. And I couldn't be happier. It's a real dream.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I'm such a big fan of the movie. I was when the movie came out, I interviewed Ang Lee, I interviewed Heath Ledger, I interviewed Jake Gyllenhaal, Anne Hathaway. I interviewed the whole cast. So I've been pretty invested in this movie, for a pretty long time. It's so big and it's so vast. It's so outdoors. Jack, talk to me a little bit about that you are, basically 90 minutes on stage, no intermission, in a building, in a story which is, so based on the great outdoors.
Well, I think that was very much taken into account in, the devising of this piece. And so, you'll see as soon as you enter the theater that natural element is very much accounted for in the design of the set, and is also very much represented through the soundscape and through, certain effects that'll be used in the show. I think they wanted to make the viewer feel as outdoors as they possibly could within the confines of a theater. And I also think it's important to note that everything that gets covered in the movie, that was adapted from the short story, and they did that on their own. And this is our own adaptation of that short story. So, there may be things that happen in the movie that we don't necessarily cover in our piece. But I think what they've done is a really elegant distillation of all the things that occur in the book. And so I think, I would suggest that people just come in with an open mind for what our version of this story is.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's, I guess, where you come in, with all this, as the playwright, of taking this original work that people know so well from the motion picture, but it is based on a short story. Brokeback Mountain, really is so much more, isn't it? It's a deep story about a relationship between these two guys.
Yes, and in that way, it's universal. And Annie Proulx, Jesus, National Book Award winner and Pulitzer Prizes, and it all comes from her. And the movie's this wonderful thing. I mean, it's gorgeous on its own, but I haven't seen the movie in 20 years. I certainly didn't watch the movie before I started this because, as Jack said, it's its own thing. It's an adaptation of the story for sure. Um, and and Annie was very adamant, as was I, which is why I think she liked the treatment and didn't like the adaptation. It's, yes, a story about two men falling in love, and yes, in our culture, it's the gay cowboy thing, and it can become the butt of a joke and all. Um, but it's really at its core a story about the restraints of class, and and I was very adamant, Annie was very adamant. So this adaptation really leans into that.
Guys, talk to me, Harrison and Jack. Talk to me about uh, how you view the relationship with the other as a character, and then also as two actors. Dealing with these two very special roles that are intimate yet distant. Touching yet painful. Harrison, tell me a little bit about Ennis and his relationship with Jack.
To echo Ashley's um, description of it being really a story about class, there's a development that happens via the relationship where Jack, who's a dreamer, really kind of goes through his life and he expands and he gets more in a way. And perhaps it's a bit of his naivete or it's different circumstances as a kid, what he saw, what he didn't see, versus Ennis, who, has been really hardened by his circumstances. And, you can go back and back and back in their histories about the West and, what kinds of situations ranchers found themselves in. And, there was no money. So circumstantially, Ennis is somebody who just has never had the opportunity to dream. And somewhere along the lines, Jack did. So, it's like Jack is somewhat of a mirror for Ennis, always trying to, he sees himself in what he can't have when he sees Jack. And I think there's an allure to that. And I think that, the relationship that Ennis has towards Jack is really complex. Because it's like he can almost live vicariously through his dreams, but at the core of it, he's returning home to his wife, to his kids, to his circumstances, and they don't allow that dream to be anything but a few trips a year, in these small moments. So, I really he's extremely complex in nature and in his heart, but he's also very simple. He kind of just has one motto that he goes by and lives by, and in many ways, in my research, kind of discovering that he's a homophobe, and it's a bit of what he's grown up with his father and what he's been exposed to, what he's seen, how men who hang out with men get treated, so there's a lot of fear in his body, and this is a guy who just has to do what he has to do. He's a survivor, and that's kind of what leads him in his decision making always, regardless of what his heart wants. So
Yeah,
his environment and his class position in class is really what dictates his life. So he's a bit of a trap soul.
yeah. Jack, tell us about Jack and how he relates to all of this.
Well, I mean, Jack is what I would describe as like a restless spirit. He sort of like has this churning engine within him that like doesn't allow him to really sit still or to, I don't think he really sits in a ton of silence or anything like that. He's charming, quick-witted, but also a bit petulant and immature and perhaps a bit selfish at times. The way that Ennis has these feels very bound by these anchors, his wife, his kids. Jack is not is not uh
moored by those things. He's willing to put them aside in favor of like what he feels is his authentic expression of like what he is meant to be doing. Um, I think of the two, if we were to really talk about like sexuality and like, you know, define who what these men are, if one of them were to be more so on like some kind of Kinsey scale, like I think Jack is. I think Jack, has same-sex relations outside of his relationship with Ennis. So I think for me, it's like Ennis is my great love, the great love of my life. And I would do anything to I would do anything to facilitate like a more official expression of that thing. Um at the cost of like, ruining my relationship with my child, ruining, abandoning them essentially. Um I just think that Jack is someone who is there's a voice, there's a roar within him that he cannot ignore or suppress that causes him to act in potentially really dangerous, precarious ways. And I think ultimately, you see that play out with the ending. And but it's such a joy to play him. He is so alive. I feel him sort of like reverberate through me in my body when I play him, and it's a very thrilling experience.
What's it like relating to each other, Jack and Harrison? What's the onstage chemistry like for both of you?
Well, Harrison, you want to go first?
Well, I'm
Sure.
intrigued by
You
the
go, Harrison.
giggle.
No. I mean, so Jack and I were like in the same scope long time ago when I was at New York City Ballet. He was at Juilliard. So we were sharing an environment and we didn't know each other. He doesn't remember me, but I remember him, which is a funny thing. But you know,
Hmm.
the way things weave are very interesting. And he's got his opera background. I have my ballet background. So there's like something I think just like intrinsically like in common. And I think part of that is our bringing up in New York, and our life there, and kind of having that same cellular similarity in that regard. And then at the same time too, it's like, we arrived into this work not really knowing each other, but having a sense of familiarity. And then, were when we arrived in Chicago, we spent about a week with Jonathan alone, together and him, and just really, you know, slowly developed our relationship as characters and as actors with Jonathan, and then actors amongst each other. And Jack's becoming an amazing friend, and we're both on this journey together as somewhat embryonic stage actors, but in many ways bringing in a vast amount of experience in art. So it's been a really beautiful thing to share that progress with each other. And, we're together like 24/7. So, and we're building this together. And, I think, like I said earlier, it's just been so much discovery, so I think that until we finish this run, like every performance, every rehearsal that we have, we're going to be constantly discovering things. And there's so many elements to all of this in the play and on stage and in the work. So um I couldn't be luckier. I sometimes think I'm like, if I was with somebody doing this that I didn't like, that would be really unfortunate. I adore Jack beyond as an actor. He's so talented and so alive and wise. And I'm really lucky, and um, we're lucky that I think we have each other in this.
Wow, Jack. Try
I
topping
don't know
that.
how to follow that. Oh, what I'll say is that Harrison is the reason I'm here. I think from what I understand, we're having a hard time casting Jack and for this production. And then Harrison's the one who put my name forward and reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, do you want to audition for this?" And then it ended up happening. So, I mean, all of this experience that I'm having is ultimately thanks to Harrison's like,
Also,
you
like Jonathan and Ashley and Shaheen and you.
no, I mean, of course, but like, he really bridged that, and of course, there's so many people, other people involved, um, but ultimately, like, he's the reason that I was considered for this, and so I'm so grateful, and I would really just echo everything that Harrison said. I feel like we've really been each other's rock through this because as to uh I think he said embryonic stage actors. It's like been a
But they're
really
performers. They're born performers, you know?
no, yeah,
Oh,
but it's been, it's been a real challenge for both of us. Like it's been a rigorous sort of daily troubleshooting exercise of like, okay, this feels weird. How do I find myself into this? Okay, we've been throwing ourselves at a bunch of different challenges every day. And it's been really, really great to have someone just to fall back on and to feel supported by. And then on stage, I just feel like, I mean, from what I hear, there's a palpable chemistry. I can't see it from the outside, but I think people are buying it.
Brokeback Mountain is at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and it is through June the 28th. And guys, I can't thank you enough for taking a little time this morning. I'm looking forward to seeing it on the press opening on Thursday night. So maybe I'll see you guys there. Ashley Robinson, Playwright, Jack Cameron K. Jack, and Harrison Ball, Ennis. Thank you all very much. And hope you're enjoying Chicago while you're here.
Loving
you
it.
are.
Well, since we're gonna be working together, I reckon it's time we start drinking together. Woo-wee! Yeah! It's nobody's business but ours. Man, kiss the bride.
Do you know somebody named Jack?
We was fishing buddies.
You know, it could be like this, just like this always.
This thing grabs hold of us in the wrong place, and we're dead.
You boys sure found a way to make the time pass up there.
You don't go up there to fish.
You don't know nothing about her.
You have no idea how bad it gets.
If you can't fix it, you gotta stand it.
I wish I knew how to quit you.